Welcome to the AT and Osteo Chronicles. My name is Jenna Howe.
And I'm Bryn Bicknell, and today we're exploring a challenging topic that many healthcare providers may encounter, the grief process associated with concussion recovery.
Yes, concussion is not just a physical injury. It affects the entire individual on so many different levels. You may have heard of the varying concussion subtypes. But I think what things are a lot of things are missed in concussion treatment is the grief around the loss of the work, loss of the sport, loss of community, friendships, loss of their sense of self. These are just the things that I've noticed in my practice over the years. And I'm super looking forward to hearing Kimberlee's expertise and her take on things as well. So, welcome, Kimberlee.
Yes, we are thrilled to welcome Kimberlee Klein, who is a grief specialist. Kimberlee, please tell us more about yourself.
I'm a grief specialist. I help people when they go through different types of loss. And people often think of grief and they always think of like loss of a loved one or loss of a job or something like that. But really it comes in all different shapes and sizes. So it can be a loss of mobility, it could be loss of again, you're talking about when we're talking about concussions, it is just sort of like basically a lot of stuff comes up, a lot of emotions come up, a lot of loss of like friendships and relationships, uh connections to people around them, because concussions have a kind of a broader spectrum of what of like kind of like there's upset, there's anger, there's sadness, there's frustration, there's so many emotions that can come up during people trying to get over their concussion or trying to go through these processes, in this new exploration of the word concussion for them. And it can be debilitating essentially. So it's a very like scary topic really, because it's like when something like a traumatic event happens, it's like not just that event happened, it's like the aftermath of that event shapes the rest of their life. So, and kind of what I do is I'm a grief specialist, so I'm actually able to guide people with different tools, and I really try to empower the individual on how to keep getting their kind of emotionally checking in on themselves. So if they're feeling triggered because they're angry or frustrated with something, I have a tool that I can share. I'm going to be sharing this as well in our links or whatever. There's a coping mechanism to actually check in with your feelings and to actually get your needs met. And when you get your needs met, it's kind of like a little meditation that I give out, which is a like basically it's like a need for acceptance, a need for love, a need for connections. It's basic human needs. But when you start giving those things to yourselves, you can start untriggering yourself so that those emotions that come up don't have to add up. And that's what I find grief is like it's all these emotions that keep coming up and are never cleared away. And then they add up in the body, and then they just become really, really stressful and really frustrating, and make life itself really hard. So that's definitely a need for some emotional regulation and emotional connection to self when people are going through this type of these different types of losses to do with concussion.
Yeah. Well, and what I noticed too is a lot of PTSD because some of the concussions that I've worked on have been people who were attacked on the street. Um, and unknowingly, right? So they're just standing there talking, and then somebody comes out of nowhere. It's not somebody that they know, like really traumatic event like that. Certainly in cases in domestic violence, car accidents, it's a lot of, especially in the complex PTSD, and now they're dealing with that. And then on top of that, they're dealing with all of the other losses related to their injury. And then on top of that, as you're saying, everything compounds, and then they have their physical symptoms.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing all that up. Yeah, and it was very, yeah, you're right. The way to get a concussion is very traumatic in itself. It's not a It's like it is a life-changing event, and it's like, wait, so that was it? Like, then I have all this problems from here on in. Like, there's a really big there's it's a hard acceptance piece, a very hard acceptance piece in life. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Focusing more on the athletes, a lot of them base their life on scholarships. And when they get an injury, they're worried about not receiving that scholarship to go to the school. So that has been challenging because it's about supporting them, but at the same time, we don't have any control over the decision that a school makes based on an injury or what they're going through in their recovery process outside of us. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
yeah,
really neat when I was listening to Kimberlee talk about um just sort of things piling on and piling on. The way you described it actually reminded me of I did my yoga therapy certification many years ago, and it wasn't yoga therapy from a you have arthritis, so here's how you're going to change your yoga practice. It actually was based on the eight limbs of yoga, more of an Eastern philosophy of yoga. And when we started talking about grief, it one of the analogies that we used was the term of samskara, and it's like there is a grief moment, and then it creates like a little pebble, and then there's another grief moment, and then it creates another coating around that, and then over time, now you have this great big ball of all these layers of grief experiences, and then something happens that maybe somebody else who haven't had the accumulation of grief experiences might look at a scenario and go, well, that was no big deal. But for the individual, maybe they lost their favorite sweater or something,
yeah,
arbitrary, really. But then it becomes this massive grief experience because it's pulled forward all of the other grief experiences, and now it's this huge thing that they have to deal with. So I don't know, I kind of deviated a little bit, but that's when you were
No,
describing it,
that's
that's
great.
what I
that's a
thought
great.
about.
I like that. I like that. I like that. Love that analogy, because that is uh,
Yes.
part of it. Because it's just like that trigger is like, why is that person reacting? We always ask, like, why is this person reacting so much? And it is because it's not that one little experience. It's all those experiences that have added up to the extreme, and then it's like that's like the explosion point, or what you want to call that. But that makes everyone make sense more. So I'll say like.
So what are some signs that people should be looking for to know maybe to seek out a grief specialist before it gets to that explosion portion?
Yeah, so basically, so in my practice, what I do is I actually have a lot of tools to start clearing out like kind of scenarios that have been impacting your life in general, like this, like, oh, I'm pissed, I'm, kind of like things that you can't kind of get over, that, or relationships that you can't get over, and you keep getting triggered by them.
Mhm.
So it pretty much is like everybody and anybody kind of, it's kind of like the scope, and then we can kind of narrow it down to when should you come to me, right? So it's it's like like when people experience my sessions are like, actually everybody should come to you, like just to clear some stuff out, and then they can start fresh again. Because I have like different modalities that I use that are like a full on grief release, so they can just clear out everything from their life. Let's just get it all done now instead of like going from piece to piece to piece. Because anyway, so the short answer is, when people are really start getting overwhelmed with, and go get to that trigger point where they're like going to explode, and then, or they start noticing the same scenarios over and over again, or like really triggering them. So I'm seeing this a lot with like mothers right now. Like I'm like, okay, they have a new kid, they have like three kids, and they're just like, they've had their break, they've done all this self-care work, and then they still come back into the same environment, and they're triggered because they're still dealing with the same kids, right? So it's like a very like, this is a triggered event, is actually your kids. So I'm like, oh, okay. See, so so then it becomes like, okay, we have to unravel that so that we can just get back to like being calm and at peace, and then they can now, and coming from a different where they are kind of almost like in a new relationship with their children. or yeah. So if
You're
that
talking
makes
about like people when they're feeling maybe overwhelmed, they're irritable, or the opposite where they want to avoid situations because they know that they're going to have an emotional response to it.
Yeah, and also when people are numb, that's actually the biggest sign is people start the a coping mechanism majority of people have is they start getting numb to different things. So they'll be like, I'm in this situation where it's where I'm being triggered again, but they're like, I'm actually just numb about it. So they've actually just like they haven't processed anything, but they're like, but now I've gotten to the point where I'm used to it. And I'm just okay, I'm not even gonna bother. So we can actually go through that and make it so that they don't even get triggered anymore. Like we have to clear that away. So that's actually a good sign as well, is like when they start getting numb and they're just like, this is the way life is, and they start becoming they start disconnecting from life because of that numbness and just like almost like giving up type thing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's a well, at any point, with somebody with post-concussion syndrome and persistent post-concussion and stuff like that. But it sounds like for somebody who maybe is preparing to go back to work or preparing to get back to their sport, um, this could be really ideal to help them transition into that return to work, return to sport, return to whatever it is that overstimulates them. But they have to kind of do those steps. Bryn probably has noticed this a lot too, but I find with athletes, they start playing very guarded. And as soon as they start playing guarded, then they're increasing their chances of other injuries as well. So trying to teach them how to kind of get back to life, and I don't know if I'm saying it the way I want to say it, but I hope that makes sense. I kind of lost
Yeah,
the
no, it
plot.
does.
I've
It
got two
does.
different thoughts going on at the same time.
I, no, I get what you're saying. It's really about them being almost afraid to move forward because, like you said, they've become numb to their situation. And then when they get past it and they're hopeful to return, they're like, well, what happens if I have to come back? I'm not ready to go back to that space. I don't even know if I'm comfortable to move out of it. And if they feel like they're ready to put themselves at risk.
Well, and I've
Yeah.
had people who are like, I'm afraid to walk around the corner. I'm afraid I'm going to get someone's going to bump my shoulder. I'm afraid I'm going to do this. I'm afraid. And quite honestly, the vast majority of my chronic cases that get better always have another hit that happens. Some weird, random, out of the blue, couldn't predict it thing that hits their head. It's practically predictable. But usually by then, they've not let it like fully trigger them from an emotional perspective. Some of them do, though. And so having these extra tools that they can utilize so that when that moment happens, instead of feeling like everything's going to unravel and regress, they have this opportunity to tap into the tools that they've learned to go, wait a second. Okay, let's just take a moment. And am I actually feeling reconcussed right now? Because chances are they probably aren't. It's just the fear.
That, that that reminds me. So for me, I've actually just by personal experience, I've been in 3 different car accidents in my life, and I've so this reminds me of the first time I was actually walking across the street when I was like 14 years old, got hit by a car. Someone ran a red light, hit me with a car, and then I had huge recovery time, like probably like 3 4 or it was like 3 or 4 years to recover for that. And then the second one was when I was 22. Me and my sister walked across the street. A cop car turned left into us,
Oh
and it
my
was just
God.
like this horrific experience. And then the third time was I was at work and I got hit from behind, and I just felt my whole body go clunk clunk, and I'm like, okay, I know what to do. I need to book my chiropractor. I need to book my massage therapist. I need to book this. I need to book. I know exactly what to do. There's no Like I was just an automatic response. I'm like, ah, shoot. Now I have to do another couple years of going to appointments. Like it's just like that's not my reaction. Like, oh crap. But it wasn't. So I did have I already knew where I'm supposed to go and what I've been here before. And it which made a difference for me because I'm like, okay, like it was just step by step, not just like I wasn't reactive or I wasn't upset about everything. It was just like, okay, these are the motions you have to go through to make this, you have to fix my body, and there's no other way around this. And so there's almost like an acceptance there that I'm hearing when you're talking about concussed patients when if they get knocked in the head again. They're like, oh, we know the
Yeah.
answer, know some of the tools you can draw from what you know.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
unfortunately, like didn't have to learn this lesson again.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's really valuable information to be able to talk about this because I don't think it's not something that a lot of my clients have talked about over the years, but it's there because you can tell from their conversation of relationship challenges, or you mentioned like moms, right? So not being able to connect with your child in the same way that you used to pre-concussion. Your friend, if it's a teenager and all their friends are going out and partying or going, doing things, and you are unable to participate. It's I think it's something that should be talked about more often.
Well,
So
there's
I'm really
definitely
happy we're having this
Yeah,
conversation.
there's definitely a breakdown in relationships. Like that is where I can see the biggest impact that a concussed person really has is because like nobody really understands what's like when you get hit by something and then you start to going, oh, I had concussion. First of all, nobody really understands what that means. They don't have like a knowing of, oh, when you're concussed, you have this much time to recover. You have to recover from that. It's like they just think, oh, they just hit their head and by tomorrow, the next day they should be fine. So then if things have changed for that person. So they might be losing their memory, they might not be showing up for appointments on time. And then that actually impacts relationships because now they're like, now we don't trust this person to show up on time, or the relationship can change dramatically. And other people can become frustrated with them, but then they're also like frustrated with themselves. They're like, why am I not remembering stuff? Because this is what they expect of that's their normal, right? We're adapting a new paradigm.
Yeah.
And then that becomes like this it's a lot. It's really a lot for someone to shift, like to have this experience, and then the people around them not understanding why, like what has been the change, because it's like, oh, they just bumped their head, but they didn't. It was a bigger event than that. And especially if they get headaches and then they can't take loud noises. So as you're saying, like if you're a teenager or something like that, and you can't go to the party because there's loud noises there, or you can't drink because you're like, that's just not going to work. I'm just going to be dizzy and more dizzy or whatever it is. Like, this is not going to be a good plan. So it really, it makes it a very long, like a very life-changing significant events for everybody around them without, and people not really understanding why. So there's like this misunderstanding, being misunderstood is a big part of this. That's what I'm understanding, what I see in this. And that's frustrating. It's very frustrating, I can see.
Yeah.
And then as far as grief goes, like again, all those emotions are coming up of like sadness and upset, and what I say when for grief, like when it starts building up and building up and building up, it ends up being like there actually ends up being like a big weight. I always say there's a weight to grief. So you're always like carrying this extra weight on your shoulders that you're like, oh my God, there's so much I'm carrying, but you don't really know you're carrying. You're just like, I'm just exhausted, like you're kind of get exhausted and you're frustrated, and all his emotions are there. And it's very anyways, it's that, like when I'm, how do I say that? Lost my train of thought. I had a point. Hold on. um, okay. Wait, sorry. When you have this big weight on your shoulder, it's like that, and that's where I can like when I work with people, it's like, okay, let me show you how to release that weight, and then also how to start when an emotion does come up, how to untrigger yourself so you're not, so you can just, it's process. You don't have to keep carrying this heavy weight. Yeah, and then it's not, and then becoming emotionally regulated is a huge part of this transition, so you can keep being nice to yourself pretty much all the way through when you're trying to recover with everything that's going on around you. Um like even like how to even share information with people around you so that they understand that you're dealing with this. the really big problem for everybody.
Yeah, because not all family systems are supportive family systems, and not all workplace situations are also, supportive and welcoming. And, we kind of assume, I think like when you are in this work, you're in this work as a supportive person. So it's hard to imagine that somebody would be going home and walking into a very unsupported situation. But of course, the reality is that lots of people are they leave our office and they're feeling supported and cared for and understood and all the things, and then they go out into the world, and it's for many people it's a very different experience. I find, like, osteopathically, when emotional stuff comes up, it's I'm just there to hold space and offer an opportunity to refer out to somebody. I usually wait till somebody asks, because often if they're open to discussing their emotional experience with their injury, um, they'll usually ask and say, "Oh, I really feel like I need to talk to a counselor," and not many people actually really specialize with concussion or know anything about concussion, and I'm finding it a challenge. So, for me, sometimes I'll go into the yogic explanation of the injury, and I tap into sort of 8 limbs and sort of Eastern philosophies. What about you, Bryn? How do you approach, those more emotional aspects of the post-concussion with the people that you're working with athletic therapy?
So one of the main things that we were taught is to try to keep them in life as much as they can to their normal. So if they were a part of a team, they still show up for the team. They still go when they can, help where they can. I think the same thing would apply to relationships. Maybe your memory's not the best. Maybe you have to put notes in your phone to, notify you that you need to do things at this time to support the family. And it's really just making sure that it's manageable for you while you're in that healing. We also do a lot of, I would say, quiet time where people try to get their rest. So it's about establishing them to do that. And then I like to give them activities so that they can try to progress and move a little bit further in their stages as well. So I like to walk them through that and talk with parents and family members and kind of give them a little bit of how they can support the individual that they're with as well.
Oh, that sounds great.
Beautiful. And I also want to mention, like, that as humans we have a lot of expectations of ourselves.
Yeah.
So us going back to work, us going back to the team, we always think we're more ready, or like it's like we don't listen to our body. So we're just like, we should be fine. We'll just go back on the field and get it done, right? Like that, and then we have been trained that way. Like that's like our society has trained us, like, you just get back in the game. You don't take, you deal with your stuff for a little bit, but you have to get back in the game. And so there's an expectation that you can't, like, that you can't take care, you can't just enjoy, like, take your time. So I really want to encourage anybody who's listening, like, you're allowed to take care of yourself first, because this is a um this part needs to be healed, and then when you go forward, you won't have to keep going back to this part again and again and again and keep recreating it. You're saying about
Yeah.
someone on the street that gets bonked in the head again. It's like, oh, you recreated the same moment. So like, let's see how you're doing now. But yeah, it's very but it's very important to take care of all the physical, the emotional, and every aspect of you before you jump back on that field, or don't, or not push yourself as much. I'll say, like, you need to still, expose yourself to some of this, but take your time. You have time.
Yeah. So I wonder, do you often, and this has come up a little bit, not very often, but sometimes I'll have spouses or parents or whatever kind of step aside and have a bit of a separate conversation. Do you ever work with the family members of the concussed individual? Because they're sensing or they're likely experiencing a loss as well, right? They're watching their loved one withdraw. They're watching their loved one's emotions be up and down. They're noticing that they're stepping back from life. Maybe they don't know how to support their loved one. And it's not something I see often in my practice, but how do you see that often in your practice, Kimberlee, where you're actually doing the work with the support system and helping them understand what their person is going through?
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, yeah. So I do get like concerned like so I'm a grief specialist, so I do work with like people who have elderly parents. So I work with like the daughters and they're like, we're concerned about our family, you know, our mom, and she's not dealing with her grief or whatever. And I'm like, okay, let's help out, let's do something. And then I'll actually work with her, with that family member, and then we'll actually do some work on the mom secretly to start clearing some of the grief and work on it. I do have a, there's a spiritual aspect I can bring into it. And then they actually do see a little shift in the mom or whatever, and they're like, oh my gosh, I see a difference, and it's she's lightening up, or there's some energy that's changed. And the whole, and I think the whole thing is like people being able to do something about it. Like there's some disempowerment around, I don't know what I can do. How can I support that person? And I'm trying my, and I'm trying my best, and I'm lecturing them a lot. And like, I'm trying to, as kids, like, okay, I'm telling them what to do. They're not listening, or they are listening and it's not creating the result you want. So again, we have to go back to the emotions of like, first of all, clearing that you're frustrated that that's happening. And then we can do some of the secret work that I do to get some shifts going on with in the energetic way. Like I do energetic work as well. So I do create a little shift for that person as well. So, or whoever we're dealing with, two people we're dealing with, we make them okay. Like the person who I'm dealing with, I mean, like the family support system, the family member, or sorry, the the family support person, I make sure their needs are met. And then I'm like, okay, and like, let's help your daughter and get her needs met without you talking to her. And then there will actually be a shift in the relationship. And they'll actually be like, oh wow. And I've had like some pretty extreme cases where like moms and sons have not been able to talk to each other like at all. There's like, and they're like a teenager talking to mom, and it's like there's no communication, like they're not, and they're ignoring mom. Oh my god, she's so frustrated. And then I'll be like, okay, let's deal with your stuff first, you're mad and upset too. And then I'll be like, okay, now let's work on your son, he's mad at you, okay, and we'll start clearing. Also, I have some secret things I do, and I clear some stuff for him. And then I don't know if I'm not swearing on this podcast, but and then he'll finally say, fuck off, mom. And then she'll be like, and then she's like, she told me to fuck off. I'm like, he's communicating. Perfect. We have a breakthrough. Let's do that. It's a start. It's
Yeah.
okay. What else do we want? We want something nicer, right? Okay. Then we start working on it, and then we do a little bit more work, and then we do. And I have seen the breakthrough of like the son inviting her to a game. And he's like, I'm not going to talk to you, but you can come to my game. And he was playing, I don't know which, I don't remember which game he was playing, but he had a game he was playing. She's like, oh, he invited me to his game. And that's like a big breakthrough for her. And she's like, okay, now I feel like I can, she just wants to say, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I'm like, okay, what does he need? He doesn't need you to keep like smothering, I'm not going to say that smothering him, but not really smothering him, but like, he just needs to hear I love him. I'm like, no, he knows that. He needs to be like, I don't know, just there's different mothers have a certain way that they work with their children all the time, and then you need to kind of shift that so they can kind of see the perspective that their son is coming from, and then they react differently from there, and it's easier.
I have personal experience with that because my son is now 23, and yeah, he was probably that very typical uh young male adolescent, and definitely some headbutting, and I remember one time very clearly let's just make it clear. I was nagging him. I was momming him to death. And he finally just said, I am a grown man. Stop. I've got this. And like he might have been 20 or 21. And it was like, right. Yes. Yes. Grown man. Mom. Okay. And so from there, the constant tongue biting.
Yeah, exactly.
Pause and listen and just be there. And so it's taken a lot of effort. Uh, but yeah, just thinking about that and trying to get a sense of what that person needs, because especially with concussed people or people who are really um feeling emotionally heavy, they just don't have the words or they don't have the bandwidth to even express what they need
Hmm.
sometimes. So having an opportunity for the support system to be able to connect with someone like yourself, just to have some tools in their toolkit. So, okay, well, I can't help and they can't talk and I don't know what to do. And okay, I'm just going to do this over here. And so they still know I'm supporting them, but I'm not doing my normal thing.
Exactly. Which it might
Yeah.
be what they need. No nagging, please.
Yeah, Kimberly, I really love the fact that you pointed out that it's almost like even the person who's going through the grief, the concussed individual, or the support, when they run out of those tools to help or get the help that they need, it's almost like there's that hope that's gone. They don't have that hope anymore or a positive thing to look forward to. And then when they can find someone that understands them, is able to give them a tool that works, they
Yeah.
know where to go for it and then they can move forward with it.
Absolutely. And actually one of the things that I'm very adamant to do in all my like I basically I kind of assess, like in my process I assess people how what they need, like what they I assess it and I don't have any opinion about it. I take on like I actually can tune into people and I go, how many sessions do you actually need with me? And then I get an answer of like it might be like 6, it might be like 4, like it depends, or maybe 10 depending on how much grief is there. So I actually like I do 90-minute sessions. I do an hour and a half, which is a long time to work with somebody if you compare it to other fields where they take maybe 45 minutes or an hour. And I get a shift with person each time we do a session, but I get like 3 or 4 shifts, like because I have so much time. I'm very and what I mean by that is like we're actually dealing with their stuff, that whatever's coming up for them right now, we're actually going to do something about it now. There's no, I'm going to give you a tool and one day you're going to use it, hopefully use it. It's like, I'm going to teach the tool really quick, like 3 minutes, let's get her done. I'm all about efficiency. So I'm just very adamant about being efficient to help you get through this process or get through all of your stuff so that we can help you create your life again. That's my big plan here in the world, and how to release all your pain and suffering so that don't have to hold on to all this stuff anymore, because it has already added up. That's when you come to me, it's already added up. We don't need to wait till it added up more. And you've already thought about it, so you've already done a lot of work. And now it's time to let that load, like help you release that load and let it go and clear it so that you have so your bandwidth does expand again, and you start realizing how much like how many people, like, how many people around you love you, how much connection you actually have around you, and you can actually start seeing the light around you. So you're like, oh, actually I am supported. And even like concussed individual, like I have a team, I have friends around me. I don't have to walk down the street and be scared, because I'm actually a good, like, I've actually set up a lot of stuff in my life. In reality, I've done a lot of different things in my life that where people are connected to me. There's no disconnection where people would feel if they feel lonely, you can go find their people again, right? It's not too hard, and everyone's happy to see you again. That's usually how it works. So
Yeah.
so it's just very that's why I mentioned that, like I actually do a lot of work with the client. Like now we don't have time. Like my assumption is there's
Yeah.
a need that needs to be addressed now, and we get it done, and then they feel better right away, and then they're like, okay, now I can deal with that situation, and we don't have to do that, or we don't have to keep keep repeating, or we don't have to.
Okay, hey, so what you guys probably noticed is that we got cut off because we ran out of our Zoom time because we were just really listening to what Kimberlee was talking about in terms of how she runs her sessions. So we apologize for that, but we're back here again. And yeah, we're just gonna jump right back in. We're almost complete. But I wonder, Kimberlee, if you could mention again how you do your process. So when somebody comes to see you, and you'd mentioned in the last segment or the last little bit that it's about a 90-minute session, and then you were going into your process with that. So maybe summarize that for us again.
Yeah. So, and I guess I'll just start from the beginning. So when people, first of all, want to connect with me, please feel free to reach out. We do a free session first, and I will give you a tool for free first. That's the feelings and needs tool that I'm going to also be giving on the link here as well. And we do basically, I do a little assessment of you. I'm very intuitive. I can tune into how many sessions you kind of need. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 9, sometimes it's 4. It depends on kind of you essentially as a human, like, and I, yeah, basically I tune in and my intuition tells me what your intuition tells me. So I just like listen and I go, all right, you need this many. And then we go from there. So, and so that's the first step. And then when we go into our sessions, we do 90-minute sessions. They are I use every minute. I do not like if we have 10 minutes left, I'm like, we have 10 minutes left. What else can we get done? Let's get her done. Right. Like, and so I'm very, very big on respecting your time and really in connecting to what you need. So what a session looks like is I ask you, basically I start with a meditation just to get you present in here. And then we go into what's going on for you right now. And then you start sharing some stuff and whatever's going on for you right now. And then I start cluing into kind of what we can work on based on what you're telling me. So if different scenarios are coming up in your life, like you're frustrated with your family member or whoever, I'll be like, okay, we can actually do some work right there and start working and get some, we can clear that grief around that thing that happened today or yesterday or a week ago or 2 months ago or has happened for the last 6 months in a row and you're really mad about it. We can start clearing all that stuff away right now. And then we do the work. And then I'm like, okay, what else is going on? And just within that little, like, maybe it's a 15-20 minute talk with you, I can get like 4 or 5 processes that I can see need to be done now. And then we do that. We do those 4 or 5 processes. Those are the things that are coming up. And then you leave like much lighter and you're like, oh, I feel so much more relieved. And I usually get a lot of good feedback around that. And then we meet up the next, we meet up the next week. And then I say, what opened up for you or what changed or what happened? We do the same thing. We do a little meditation to tune you in, line you back up, just getting you connected. I actually have the connection. We have 6 parts. I consider we have 6 parts to ourselves. I make sure that you have a higher self, you have your body, you have your mind, you have your heart, you have your spirit, you have your soul. Those are the 6 parts. And I just like check in with each part so that you are, and so the meditation kind of guides you through those different parts of yourself so that you're listening to each part. We actually don't take time to really listen to all our parts. And in that we can find like problems or issues that are coming up. We're like, okay, we have to deal with that. There's a lot of grief in your heart right now. And then or in your mind, how hard your brain works for you. It's allowed to take a break today. It's never had one before. So there's just different discoveries you kind of discover when you're in session. You're like, oh, I have never thought about my brain having to take a break. So there's just different things that you kind of learn on the way. And then again, we go into what's going on for you right now, and then more stuff will come up. And then again, we'll go into, here's 5 more things we can do today. I bring people through, for my sessions, I do 3 sessions, like session week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, we take a break just to like, so things can kind of rattle up or things can change. And then we do session 1, 2, 3, and then take a break. And then depending how many sessions they need, 1, 2, 3, take a break. So that's the pattern. And then on the last session, we do another set. For the last session, I'll book a week later or 2 weeks later to do 1 more check-in with you for another hour and that's just free of charge to make sure that we're cleaning up any other messes that have come up on the way, so that you're like whole and complete, and you're like, okay, we've dealt with so much stuff and everything that, and now I know how to handle. And I get you from like, we're dealing with stuff from the past, we're getting you back into the present, and now you're actually up to creating the future. So, and you're just like, and you're on it, you're like doing it now. So I get you to the point where you're actually able to create stuff. And in the between sessions, things come up that, and there's a lot of like, I always, my excitement in my work is the miracles. Like we, we work with your, secretly work on your son. He tells you to fuck off, and you're like, and it's a miracle. Like, wow, holy jeepers, what else? My God, we got a big breakthrough. Or he asks you to like come see his game. We're like, oh my God, we actually made that change, that relationship, or it's progressing, right? We actually can see some progress really quickly. Like, I've, and just to kind of name some results that I've had with like many like different clients, they're all like case by case, right? I've had estranged sisters that haven't talked to the family for like 3-4 years, text that next week. I've had people who've like, and a lot of times I don't know what the whole story is. I just get like this little clips of like, you're mad at your son or whatever, but really there's some other magical thing in the background that I'm not aware of. And I've had like a daughter where we worked on her, and she needs like independence, and I was like, okay, well, let's give her some independence. And then she ended up buying, like getting a car and buying a car, but she was actually like in a traumatic accident 15 years later, 15 years earlier, and she hadn't driven a car since. So we'll actually clear some crazy stuff, and I'm not aware what we're doing. I'm just like, oh, she's independence, and it will be, and then the mother will tell me and be like, she bought a car, and now she can travel on the island and do what she needs to do. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And she doesn't have a license. Like, that's kind of weird. I don't even think she should have a car license. But it turns out big massive car accident that the horrible things have happened, and like all these things. And I'm like, oh, this is a big miracle that she's even driving, like that she's back in the car. Like that's a big deal. So that's my favorite part of my job is actually learning what happened afterwards and seeing, or what happened between sessions, because there's things open up like pretty quickly when we put energy and effort into each little scenario that comes up in your life. And that makes the biggest difference. So
yeah. Well, I think that that's great for the concussion group, because I think that in terms of what I've noticed in my practice is that the talk therapy in a traditional sense can be exhausting and triggering, and then feels like that there's not really an end point. Whereas it looks like the type of work that you do as a grief specialist is, it sounds like it's a bit more productive and like, and not really re-traumatizing or re-triggering, but it's like, we're here for a purpose, and we're here to get you feeling better. And then an offshoot of that is that their relationships with potentially their family and their coworkers, their support systems, will also have this benefit. And so it kind of grows from there. Does that sound
yep. Yeah, that's
correct?
a beautiful way of saying it. And I always say to people, like that I get people to the end of their grief. So
Yeah.
because people can like people who come to me are like 20 years later, they're still grieving the loss of their mom, or something that traumatic that's happened to them, like any other event that's happened in their childhood. They're still grieving it, or they're still upset about it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, let's get you to the end of that so you never have to keep doing that. Like my assumption is you've thought about it a lot, and that you've done a lot of work. You've already done a lot of work. And it's like, I'm gonna get you to the end process now. Let me show you the end process so you don't have to keep doing that again and again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Exactly.
And yeah, and you're right. It does reconnect with all their family members and their support system. You're right, 100%. That's a good way of putting it, because that's the I'm like, humans are messy. We have to clean up all the messes that have been piling up. And that's the work we just go and do, and secretly, and then things start shifting, and they're like, okay, life is better now. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. Bryn, do you have any other questions?
I don't think I do at this time.
All right, so then I think now's probably a great time to wrap it up. I really appreciate meeting you, Kimberlee. I'm already starting to think, oh, maybe I should be meeting Kimberlee. I need some sessions. It's fascinating to learn more about what you do and how you help people with grief, and also grief maybe surrounding their concussion experience as well. So again, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. And then if our listeners want to hear anything else, I mean, I'm sure we'd happy, well, I speak for the group, but I think, it could be great to have a part two at some point. And if our listeners can send us some specific questions, then we can really dig into some other aspects of Kimberlee's work. And then we'll post where people can find you, Kimberlee, and any resources that you want to share. Then we'll post that along with this podcast for anybody who wants it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to connect with you guys and to share with your audience and see how I can help. I love it.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. I am so happy that you shared what you do. And like Jenna said, and you said earlier, it's almost like everyone could really use this service. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. It's a very, I try to change people's life. That's my big plan here, in a good way, and get people through all the stuff they've already dealt with. And maybe there's some things we need to clean up so that it's just not still in the space.
Beautiful.